It's easy to support a football team that always wins. No, not you. Not only is it more fun, success tends to be a key ingredient in growing local, domestic, and international fan bases over time. It's no surprise that some of the best supported teams in the world, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Manchester United, Liverpool, Bayern Munich, and Juventus, are also among the most successful. Meanwhile, Braintree Town, who have never played in the Football League and are currently 20th in the Vanarama National League, have a significantly smaller fan base. There are other factors that go into building a large and loyal fan base though. West Ham, for example, have never won a single top-flight league title, unlike Blackburn Rovers, Huddersfield Town or Leicester City, yet they have the 8th highest average attendance in world football and an estimated 10,000 fans on their season ticket waiting list. Fortuna Dusseldorf, meanwhile, not only haven't won a German championship since the year that Adolf Hitler became German Chancellor, 1933 in case you were wondering, 30 years before the Bundesliga was even founded, they are a second division club competing in the second Bundesliga, yet they enjoy higher average attendances than Juventus, Chelsea, and Fenerbahce. Even more extreme examples include Dynamo Dresden of the third Liga, the third tier of German football, who have averaged almost 30,000 fans at the Rudolf Habig Stadion this season, effectively selling out every week, giving them a higher average attendance than the majority of teams in Europe's Big Five leagues. Paysandu Sport Club in Brazil, who drew a crowd of almost 50,000 for a third tier game in the Campeonato Brasileiro Serie C in 2023, or then Turkish second-tier duo Karşıyaka and Göztepe, who set a record for the highest ever attendance outside of a top flight in 1983, when a whopping 80,000 people turned up to watch the Izmir derby in the second tier. The highest attendance, excluding championship playoff finals it should be said, where crowds regularly exceed 80,000 at Wembley. Heck, as things stand, the likes of Lyon, Valencia, and even, dare I say it, Manchester United could all be in contention for this 7 next season. Anyway, you get the idea. I find this sort of thing interesting, and so I'm just arrogantly assuming that you will too. If you don't, I can only apologise. By lower league, I just mean any league that isn't a top flight. I know there is some debate about what constitutes a lower league, but anything below the highest league is, definitionally, a lower league. You can't argue with science. I am also limiting inclusions to 1 club per country, otherwise the 7, would consist of about 5 or 6 German clubs, 1 English one, and maybe 1 Argentinian one. Right, without further ado then, who isn't a club, he is a former wonder kid, here are 7 of the world's best supported lower league football clubs. 7th, Wisła Kraków. Restricting this 7 to 1 club per country prevents it from consisting almost entirely of clubs in the second Bundesliga, which is so packed full of fallen giants in a country with immense fan culture that it now has the same average attendances as La Liga, and instead throws up some interesting and perhaps slightly more unexpected inclusions like Wisła Kraków, who get us started. I should point out that 7th place almost went to Shimizu S-Pulsar, who had a higher average attendance than Wisła Kraków in the J2 League last season, but since they were crowned as champions in November, winning promotion to the J1 League, they are no longer eligible. Wisła Kraków, by contrast, finished 10th out of 18 teams in the I-League last season, which is the second tier of Polish football. That is unusual territory for Wisła, who have not only spent almost their entire history competing in Poland's top-flight Ekstraklasa, they have been crowned as national champions on 14 occasions, most recently in 2011. That was previously enough to make Wisła the joint most successful club in Polish football, but they have since relinquished that title to bitter rivals Legia Warsaw, with whom Wisła contest the infamous Derby of Poland. Things all started to go wrong for Wisła during the 2010s. Firstly, when they fell from title contenders to mid-table, and secondly, when the 11th richest person in Poland, Bogusław Kupiał, and his Telefonica cable group, sold the club to TS Wisła in 2016. TS Wisła was the original name of Wisła Kraków, and is still the official name of the largest sports club, of which the football club is the primary constituent, but TS Wisła was a murky consortium, controlled chiefly by the SKWK fan group, which was itself thought to be largely controlled by the Wisła Sharks, Wisla's volatile, often violent, and routinely racist ultras, who reportedly have close ties to organised crime in Poland's second largest city. Over the next few years, Wisła was transformed from a football club into a headquarters for organised crime. Wisła faced persistent allegations of facilitating money laundering, drug smuggling, and even harbouring criminal goods and criminals themselves on the club's premises. It is little surprise, therefore, that Wisla's situation both on and off the pitch rapidly deteriorated, culminating in relegation in 2022. I have made an entire video about this bizarre and crazy period at Wisła, titled The Football Club Run by Hooligans, should any of you be interested. Wisła are no longer owned by hooligans, but by the tech entrepreneur Jarosław Królowski, along with a consortium led by Poland and Borussia Dortmund legend Jakub Blaszczykowski, which saved the club. And though promotion back to the Ekstraklasa has not yet arrived, Wisła won the Polish Cup for the 5th time in 2024, despite finishing 10th in the second division, qualifying for the Europa League as a result. Wisła lost in the qualifying rounds for both the Europa League and the Conference League, but there were over 30,000 fans in the stadium when they hosted Rapid Vienna, and over 25,000 for the visit of Cercle Bruges. In the I-Liga, Poland's second tier, Wisła averaged crowds of 16,613 last season, and over 16,500 yet again so far this term. It's not quite the top end of the Championship or some of the gargantuan second Bundesliga crowds, but it is 4 times the I-Liga average and 4,000 higher than the Ekstraklasa average in the division above them. Following Szemuzu S-Pulsa's promotion, therefore, it is Wisła, the reigning Polish Cup winners who are no longer principally owned by gangsters, which is a relief, who sneak in at 7th. Narrowly ahead of Rota Volgograd, who play at the massive Volgograd Arena, which hosted 4 games at the 2018 World Cup, and who have averaged 15,401 fans at their home games in Russia's second tier so far this season, up from 10,521 in the third tier last season. 6th, Sampdoria. It was a toss-up between Sampdoria, Palermo, and Bari for Italy's inclusion in this 7, with a special mention for Catania, who have an average attendance of 16,950 in a 20,204 capacity stadium in the regional third tier of Italian football. That is actually a higher average than Bari, in a league with an average attendance of 3,509, so 1/5 the size of their own. Bari almost featured not because of their average attendance, which is high by Serie B standards, at 15,982, but not spectacular in the context of this 7, but because of their occasional mega crowds for big games at the truly enormous 58,270 capacity Stadio San Nicola, and their undoubted potential, having averaged over 30,000 fans at their home games in Serie A during the 1990s. You can't make this 7 on potential, though. That would somewhat defeat the entire object of it. And Sampdoria, following relegation in 2023, have the highest average attendances in Serie B. Traditionally part of the top-flight furniture of Italian football, Sampdoria won the Scudetto in 1991, at a time when Serie A was the strongest league in world football. They lifted their 4th Coppa Italia in 1994, and they finished above both Inter and AC Milan as recently as the 2014-15 season. The wheels came off under the ownership of film producer and controversy magnate Massimo Ferrero, who is currently under house arrest pending one of his many trials for one of his many accused crimes, all of which, you won't be surprised to discover, I have covered in another video, taking a deep dive into Sampdoria's demise. Despite their relegation, however, Sampdoria fans haven't turned their backs on their team. In actual fact, the 22,641 fans that Sampdoria averaged at the Stadio Luigi Ferrari, better known as the Marassi in Serie B last season, along with the 22,435 that they have averaged so far this season, is higher than they had averaged in Serie A over the preceding decade, dating all the way back to the 2012-13 season. Despite being roared on by the biggest crowds in Serie B, Sampdoria are currently 16th in the league, which puts them inside of the relegation playoffs as things stand. Now owned by former Leeds United owner Andrea Radrizzani, Sampdoria are an iconic football club, not least because of their unique badge and kit design, and when they finally get back to Serie A, or Genoa drop down into Serie B, I plan to visit and make a video for my second channel about what is probably one of the most underrated rivalries in all of world football in terms of passion, intensity, and sheer hatred. Yes, that was both a promise and a plug. Now go subscribe. There is a great video about a 250,000 capacity disused stadium in Prague on there, and the city in Germany with the lowest GDP per capita. If that's not the sort of content that you want, I'm not sure what any of us are doing at this point anymore. Fifth, Atletico Paranaense. Brazil had a few candidates for this 7, and it wasn't straightforward choosing who to include. Like a lot of countries, but unlike England and Germany, which have by far the world's highest lower league attendances on average, there are several lower league teams in Brazil who are capable of attracting gargantuan crowds for cup games, promotion or relegation deciders, or local rivalries, but who tend not to be able to maintain such large crowds for regular league matches, sometimes seeing an equally gargantuan drop-off. Santa Cruz FC from Recife, for example, who compete in the 4th tier of Brazilian football and play their home games at the enormous Estádio do Arruda, attracted a crowd of more than 40,000 for a Campeonato Brasileiro Serie D promotion playoff game, so basically, the equivalent of a League 2 playoff semi-final in England, which, naturally, ended 0-0. In the second leg, Santa Cruz lost 1-0 against Tocantinópolis, a club whose stadium can only hold 8,000 fans. For regular league games, however, Santa Cruz don't average anything like those numbers. Paysandu, likewise, who I mentioned during the intro, drew a crowd of over 49,000 in the 3rd tier in 2023, but have only averaged 13,924 in the 2nd tier so far this season. Their support is flaky, is what I'm getting at, and it makes it difficult to compare teams with much higher ceilings in terms of attendances versus those with more loyal and consistent fan bases. It is similarly difficult to assess Atletico Paranaense, a big club from Curitiba, which is the capital of the Brazilian state of Paraná, who were relegated from the Campeonato Brasileiro Serie A to Serie B in 2024. Curitiba is a big city, home to almost 2 million people, with an even larger metropolitan area. But neither Atletico Paranaense or their bitter rivals Coxa have enjoyed the same kind of success as the big Rio or Sao Paulo clubs. They've both won one Campeonato Brasileiro Serie A title in total, Curitiba in 1985 and Atletico Paranaense in 2001, back when the likes of Kleberson, Souza, and Alex Mineiro played for the club, and they were still called Atletico Paranaense. If you are struggling to spot the difference between those two names there, Paranaense added an H to their name in 2019, going from Atletico, which is the correct spelling in Portuguese, to Atletico, which isn't, supposedly because they felt that the team needed to differentiate themselves from Atletico Mineiro, who most Brazilians associate with the word Atletico rather than them. Often described as being the biggest club outside of Brazil's so-called Big 12, and at times cited as having surpassed some of them, Paranaense play their home games at the Arena da Baixada, which was renovated and expanded to a capacity of 42,372 ahead of the 2014 World Cup, where the stadium hosted 4 group games. Last season, Paranaense averaged crowds of 31,964, which is more than the team who features above them in this 7, as well as having a higher record attendance of just shy of 60,000. The reason they feature in 4th, rather than 3rd, is because Paranaense's 31,964 average came in the Brasileiro Serie A last season, so the top flight, and it remains to be seen how sticky their support will be in Serie B in the 2025 season, which doesn't get underway until April. The last time that Paranaense were in the 2nd division, their average attendance fell below 4,000, which is obviously abysmal, but their average attendance in the top flight at the time was only 14,000, there were several extenuating circumstances, and I would personally be amazed if their crowds fell to anything like that low numbers this time around. If they do, boot them out of this 7, replace them with either Paysandu or Santa Cruz, and call me out for the clueless fraud that I am from that point until the end of my life. 4th, Malaga. The 2 biggest clubs in Andalusia, Real Betis and Sevilla, both hail from the autonomous community's capital and largest city, Seville, at average crowds of over 50,000 and 35,000 respectively, making it statistically among the highest match-going cities in the world. The next best supported club in the region, however, isn't Granada, who also compete in La Liga, but Malaga, who were relegated to the Segunda Division in 2018. One of 4 teams to feature in this video that I have made a specific video or documentary about. Hey, I like fallen giants, alright? It's sort of one of my things, don't judge. Malaga finished 4th in La Liga as recently as the 2011-12 season under Manuel Pellegrini, with a team which starred the likes of Solomon Rondon, Santi Cazorla, Isco, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Jeremy Toulon, and Martin Di Michaelis, and would go on to reach the quarterfinals of the Champions League the following season, where they very nearly overcame Borussia Dortmund. Malaga's support swelled during this time, as one would imagine, but even in the Segunda Division back in the 1990s, Malaga still averaged over 30,000. Now in their 7th season outside of the top flight, Malaga averaged 21,715 in the 3rd tier of Spanish football last season, which is practically unheard of. The average throughout their Primera Federation group was just 8,160, with the next highest figure coming courtesy of Real Murcia at 13,528, and they have averaged 25,178 in the Segunda Division so far this season, which is also a divisional record, almost double the league's average, and higher than over half of all La Liga teams, including Villarreal and Mallorca, who are currently on course to qualify for Europe next season. An extremely honourable mention must go to another fallen giant of Spanish football, Deportivo La Coruña, another team that I have made a video about. I know, I'm an absolute bloody machine, who averaged 23,177, so even more than Malaga in the 3rd tier last season, but fall just short of them in the 2nd tier this season, with an almost identical average to last season, whereas Malaga's has increased, along with Sporting Gijón, who I haven't made a video about, slacking, but have also averaged over 20,000 in the Segunda Division so far this season. Malaga's average attendance falls just outside of the 100 highest average attendances in all of world football, ahead of the likes of Monaco, Atalanta and Cruz Azul, 3 of the strongest teams in Ligue 1, Serie A and Liga MX this season, while Malaga currently sit 10th in their 1st season back in the Segunda Division. 3rd, Club Atlético Colón. Alright, I'll level with you, my 1 club per country limit might have made things more fun, in my view at least, and as you know, I'm all about the fun. But things start to get serious as we enter the podium positions. Club Atlético Colón don't have a slightly larger match-going fanbase than Sampdoria and Malaga, they have a significantly larger one. Based in the city of Santa Fe, which is the capital of the province of Santa Fe in Argentina, Club Atlético Colón have never won the Primera Division, although they did win the Copa de la Liga Profesional in 2021, qualifying for the 2022 Copa Libertadores as a result, where they made the round of 16, and they were relegated from the top flight in 2023. In the Primera Nacional, which is Argentina's messy and confusing 2nd tier, sitting just below Argentina's messy and confusing 1st tier, Colón averaged a genuinely incredible 39,011 fans at their home games last season, which is one of the 50 highest average attendances in world football, above Galatasaray, Sevilla, and PSV. What makes that even more impressive is the fact that Colón's stadium, the Estadio Brigadier General Estanislao Lopez, better known as the Elephant Graveyard, because why not, only has a capacity of 40,042, which means that Colón have basically had sellout crowds every week in the Primera Nacional. That is an all-time record for the 2nd tier of Argentine football, breaking a record of 31,561, which was set by Rosario Central during the 2012-13 season. Cologne Stadium is capable of being expanded to 50,000, and based upon their attendances in the second tier, they could comfortably fill that back in the big time, which would give them the 4th highest average attendance in Argentina's top flight. I told you that things were getting serious. Second, Sunderland. The Championship is by far the second most watched second tier in world football in terms of matchday attendances, and the most watched when it comes to TV audiences. There are 12 Championship clubs, so exactly half the division, who average crowds in excess of 20,000, including my own club Hull City, of whom I am one of the 21,070 fans who flock to the MKM Stadium on average each week. The likes of Norwich City, Derby County, Coventry City, Middlesbrough, and even Burnley and Portsmouth, despite having smaller stadiums, all have tremendous fan bases relative to their current and historic levels of success in an international context, and, in some cases, also in relation to the size of their local populations. Burnley, for example, has a population of just 78,266, yet the home end at the 21,944 capacity Turf Moor is packed to the rafters virtually every week, whether Burnley are competing in the Premier League or in the Championship. 4 clubs can perhaps stake the strongest claims to have the most fans in the Championship though, namely the 2 Sheffield clubs, United and Wednesday, in a city that is obsessed with football, Leeds United, who are the only professional club in what is by some metrics the 3rd largest city in England, and Sunderland, whose support, relative to both the city's size and the club's recent success, genuinely beggars belief. Sunderland is a city of 168,000 people in a borough of only 274,000, and Sunderland AFC have won just one major trophy since the end of the Second World War, and even that one came over 40 years ago. And yet, the Black Cats are one of only 7 lower league football clubs in the entire world with an average attendance in excess of 40,000, and the only one outside of Germany. Even during their 4 seasons in League One, the 3rd tier of English football, excluding the season with no crowds due to COVID-19, Sunderland's average attendance never fell below 30,000, and they set a record for the highest ever League One attendance when 46,039 fans turned up for a 1-0 win on a Boxing Day clash against Bradford City. That was the 3rd highest attendance in English football that week, including Championship and Premier League matches, and only 7 Premier League teams have a higher average attendance than that now. For context, Sunderland's average attendance in the Championship, in their 8th season outside of the Premier League, half of which have been spent in League One, is the same as Chelsea's, who are currently 4th in the Premier League and won a Champions League, more recently than Sunderland played a game of Premier League football, and Juventus's, who are the most successful club in Italian football and have the largest overall fan base. In the interest of balance, it is worth noting that Sunderland don't have the largest away following in the Championship, but it is still pretty impressive, and given the club's isolated and distant location compared to most clubs, that is hardly surprising. And while Leeds United have more followers on social media, Crystal Palace and Watford have more than both of them, and I don't think that many people would consider them to be a bigger club than either Sunderland or Leeds. Sunderland's immense diehard support is often attributed to deindustrialisation and subsequent austerity, which has left Sunderland relatively poor and lacking in opportunities. The football club, and this is something that the Netflix documentary Sunderland Till I Die captured well, I think, has become the focal point of the city in many respects, and an outlet or form of escapism for people to express their anger, joy, hope and desperation. Well, that and the fact that Sunderland were one of the best clubs in England in the pre-war era, and have always enjoyed a strong support. First, Schalke. The EFL may have the highest overall attendance of any football body in the world, and that is solely English football's 2nd, 3rd and 4th tiers, it is worth noting, excluding the Premier League, but no lower league comes close to the 2nd Bundesliga when it comes to enormous fan bases and incredible average attendances. As I covered in yet another video not all that long ago, lots of Germany's biggest clubs have been relegated in recent years, and many of them have found it difficult to either get back into or stay in the Bundesliga. Consequently, when Germany hosted the Euros last summer, half of the 10 host venues were home to second Bundesliga clubs, and there are now more former German champions in the second Bundesliga than there are in the Bundesliga itself. The end result is an extraordinary average attendance of over 30,000 throughout the entire division, 6 clubs with average attendances in excess of 40,000, 2 in excess of 50,000, and 1, Schalke, in excess of 60,000. If I hadn't imposed the 1 club per country limit on this 7, literally 6 out of the 7 inclusions would be second Bundesliga clubs, namely Schalke, Hamburg, Köln, Hertha, Kaiserslautern, and Fortuna Düsseldorf. Given that only 1% of the world's population resides in Germany, that is pretty staggering. FC Köln, who are the 3rd best supported team in the second Bundesliga, still have a higher average attendance than Manchester City, PSG, and even an exiled Barcelona this season. Dynamo Dresden, who compete in Germany's 3rd-tier 3rd Liga, have a higher average attendance than Leicester City, St Etienne and Wolfsburg. Meanwhile, Alemannia Aachen averaged 19,708 in the 4th tier of German football last season, and 24,053 in the 3rd tier so far this term, which makes them one of 4 German 3rd division teams with an average attendance in excess of 20,000. I could glaze German fan culture all day long, but now it is time to glaze Schalke specifically. I visited Gelsenkirchen last summer during the Euros to make a video about the place and its football club, which is titled The Most Football-Obsessed City in the World. There is plenty of competition for that crown, but I don't think that anywhere can stake a stronger claim than Gelsenkirchen. Like Sunderland on steroids, Gelsenkirchen suffered heavy bombing during the Allied oil campaign of World War II, before being ravaged by deindustrialization, leading to widespread unemployment and desperation. Schalke, however, have always been the pride of a wounded region, and the best supported club in North Rhine-Westphalia, Germany's most populated state, which has a larger population than the Netherlands. That is despite the fact that Gelsenkirchen itself is only the 25th largest city in Germany and the 11th largest in North Rhine-Westphalia, home to 262,528 people. What that means is that Schalke's average attendance of 61,262 is roughly a quarter of the city's total population, equivalent to Malaga or Leeds having an average attendance of about 130 to 140,000, as Schalke draw in support from neighbouring cities like Herne, Oberhausen, and of course, the greatest city in Germany, Bottrop. Right, time for some crazy context and comparisons. Schalke's average attendance is the 11th highest in all of world football, despite this being their 2nd successive season outside of the Bundesliga, and their 3rd in only 4 years, higher than the likes of Arsenal, Atletico Madrid, and Liverpool. What's more, given the fact that the Veltins Arena has a capacity of 62,271, Schalke are prevented from featuring in the top 10 while competing in the second Bundesliga, not due to any kind of lack of support, but a ceiling in terms of their capacity. I don't think that it is any exaggeration to say that with a large enough stadium, certainly back in the Bundesliga, Schalke could rival their bitter rivals Borussia Dortmund for the crown of having the highest average attendance in world football, and I wouldn't rule them out being able to fill an 80,000 capacity stadium, even while competing in the second division. Just an amazing city, for all of the flack that it gets in Germany, full of amazing people, and home to an incredible football club. Not incredible on the pitch, of course, where they have been terrible for the last half-decade, and currently sit in the bottom half of the second Bundesliga table, but off it, they might just be the most remarkable club in the world. That is it for today's video. An apology if my voice was slightly off. The day before recording this, Hull City came back from 3-1 down with only 10 minutes remaining to draw 3-3 against Leeds United, and I may have celebrated a bit. Sue me. But yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Apologies about the voice. Hit the like button if that was the case. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. And of course, it goes without saying, make sure that you are subscribed and have notifications turned on, not just for this channel, HITC Sevens, but also my second channel, which I plugged earlier on, Alfie Potsama, both of which should be about to appear on your screens now, along with a couple of videos from each that you might enjoy watching after this one. Go on, you know you want to. go on, you might as well, you might enjoy it, Anyway, thanks again, and I hope you have an absolutely sensational day. Cheers.